So, on today's episode, we're going to look at the hidden costs and dangers of hiring a budget marketing agency for your remodeling company. Anytime you're looking at digital marketing, you've got a choice to make. Do you go cheap or do you go for quality? And this is the topic we want to cover today. We want to look at the pros and cons. And I want to start by giving you this thought. Why low-cost marketing firms could be quietly draining your time, profit, and reputation, and what to do instead. If you've ever hired a cheap marketing agency and ended up doing most of the work yourself, then you probably know what we're talking about today. If that sounds familiar, you're not alone, because budget marketing firms lure remodelers with promises of low monthly fees and fast results, but the hidden costs behind these bargains often run a whole lot deeper. And that can be anything from lost time and low quality leads to brand damage and poor return on investment. And many remodelers find that hiring a low-tier marketing provider actually costs more in the long run. And so on today's episode, we're going to explore the real risks and consequences of hiring a cut-rate budget marketing agency and what you really need to look for in a true growth partner. And so thank you for joining today, and let's dive into the topic and get started. See, here's the real appeal and the pitfall, if you will, of budget marketing agencies. And first of all, let's give a definition. What is a budget marketing agency? Well, these are going to be firms that offer starter marketing packages, often under $1,000 per month, featuring generic services like basic SEO, social media posts, and pay-per-click ads. And what these agencies often do is they rely on templates, automation, and overseas labor to deliver results at scale. And a lot of remodelers choose them because they have a limited marketing budget. They've had bad experience with past agencies, and they really have a misunderstanding of what good marketing actually costs and delivers. Now, here's the real problem. While the price tag is attractive and may seem appealing, these firms often lack any real industry experience or brand strategy, and their lead generation systems generally are not tailored to home improvement professionals. They're generic in nature. And so what that ends up leading to is wasted time, missed revenue, and reduced credibility within your market. And so what happens is this first component, lost time, ends up being the most expensive cost that you actually can't see, but it is your most valuable commodity. You see, poor communication leads to constant rework. And so cut rate, cheap agencies often are using offshore teams or inexperienced staff. And let me just say this, having an offshore team in and of itself is not a bad thing if they are experts in what they do. But many times what you find is they are inexperienced. And so as a result, or because of language barriers or unclear feedback loops, there are missed deadlines that often become very routine. And so you end up rewriting emails, constantly having to clarify tasks, or chasing updates because of those missed deadlines. And then what ends up happening is you have these vague deliverables and shifting scopes of work. And so promises like weekly content or lead generation that sound appealing, but they have no specificity. There's no defined deadlines or outcomes. And so you're really left wondering what's actually included. So when expectations aren't aligned, what happens is you end up with scope creep. It's just inevitable that it's going to happen. And unfortunately, then you become the project manager. You haven't offloaded anything, you've actually added something else to your plate. So instead of freeing up your time, you're now spending hours checking up on the work, reviewing poor content, trying to correct grammar, managing the process. And that time really is better spent leading your business and closing opportunities for your business. And so the bottom line is every hour that you spend fixing the work of your cheap cut rate marketing company is an hour that you're not earning revenue or building long-term value for your business. The next thing that happens is you start missing opportunities because the growth never gets off the ground. And this happens because there's a lack of remodeling market insight. Remember, most budget agencies don't understand the psychology of your customer. They don't understand the motivation behind it. I have a saying that I often use. There's a difference between a technician and a practitioner. A technician understands the technical aspects. They understand the nuts and bolts, but they don't really understand how things work. They don't understand the real world application. And that's really what happens here. Most budget agencies don't understand the consumer psychology, why they do what they do. So things like seasonal cycles, regional pricing sensitivities, or even common homeowner fears like cost overruns and contractor trust and mistrust, things of that nature. They just don't understand. And so that leads to tone deaf messaging and bad timing. And then you get tactics that are disconnected without a funnel. So they may run ads or posts on social media without any cohesive marketing funnel, or you hear me talk about an ecosystem. Nothing is interconnected. Things are not working together in synergy. And so there's no retargeting, there's no email nurturing, there's no strategy for conversion. Because you have to remember, the average consumer may be taking a multi-week, multi-month process in their decision-making journey. What we find is oftentimes it takes 12 to 15 touch points from initial contact to conversion. And so if there's no conversion strategy, your prospects are left hanging. And so are your results. And then, of course, if there's no strategy for conversion, there's no strategy for follow-through, which means there's no plan to capture and convert those leads over time. So every campaign starts from scratch, and you're just left wondering why your pipeline is not getting full and why it's not growing. You have to remember that smart marketing builds momentum. Cheap marketing stalls it. Another common complaint when it comes to cheap marketing agencies is poor lead quality. Oftentimes, more leads really means more waste. The issue isn't that you need more leads, the issue is you need the right leads. And here's what happens is you're getting unqualified leads. So budget agencies prioritize lead volume over fit. They often use broad targeting or outdated tactics that generate leads from renters, low budget homeowners, or people who aren't even in your service area. And where this gets really interesting right now is some of the targeting changes that have happened on platforms like Facebook and Instagram because of their AI components, and even with Google. The targeting's gotten a little sloppy. And so if your marketing agency is not adjusting to those changes in the platform, the targeting gets really messy, really imprecise, and the lead quality goes down. So what you end up seeing is low conversion rates. You may get 50 leads, but only one of those leads may be serious. And meanwhile, your sales team is wasting time chasing people that never were a good fit for your business. And then you've got brand damage that is occurring because of bad outreach. So poor outreach, like spammy emails or poorly written ads, tarnish your reputation. And homeowners start associating your business with low-end work and pushy tactics. And that's not the reputation that you want. So you don't just lose the bad leads, you end up losing the good ones who are turned off by your public appearance. The next thing that tends to happen is what we call brand dilution. And that's a slow burn that undermines trust. And here's the way that takes place. Number one, it starts with generic messaging. Most budget agencies are reusing copy across industries. And here's the sad truth is what they're doing is they're going to ChatGPT, creating some generic ad copy that they use across multiple industries. So they're using the same ad copy for the restaurant, for the dentist, for the chiropractor, for you as the home remodeler, and for anybody else they service. And so your remodeling firm ends up sounding like a roofing company or cleaning service or dentist or veterinarian, and that weakens your credibility. There's nothing distinctive. Your unique selling proposition is not coming into play. There are inconsistent visuals. So logos look distorted, colors shift, fonts and messaging are varying across platforms because there's no consistency. And so these inconsistencies psychologically send a subtle but damaging message to the consumer. This business isn't professional. And that's not the message you're trying to send. And then, of course, what that leads to is a loss of brand authority. Because when your brand looks cheap, you attract cheap clients, price shoppers, tire kickers. And when your messaging isn't consistent, trust erodes. And what that does is it impacts your closing rates, your referral potential, and long-term client value. See, you're not just building a brand at this point, you're joining a race to the bottom. And that's not the race you want to be in. Cheap agencies also have tech and reporting failures on a regular basis. And here's the reality, you cannot grow what you don't measure. And so if they're using outdated or inadequate tools, bare-bone platforms with no CRM integration, call tracking, or performance dashboards, that just leaves you guessing where your leads are coming from, or if your marketing is even working at all. If there's no optimization or testing going on, if they're running set it and forget it campaigns, which is common because they're not going to put any effort into it, then ads run without any iteration, without any fine tuning. Landing pages are never changed, they're never split tested, they're never refined. There's no A/B testing. There's no plan to improve the results over time. And you end up with vanity metrics over actual ROI. You'll get reports filled with likes, impressions, or clicks, but not actual revenue generating metrics like cost per lead, cost per job, or customer lifetime value. Remember, data isn't useful unless it drives decision making. So here's a real world comparison for you of a budget agency versus a strategic partner. And I want to give you just some real world expectations and kind of set the frame for you so you're thinking realistically. So The monthly cost for a budget agency might be around $700 a month. A strategic partner, probably going to be closer to $3,500 a month. Lead quality for that budget agency is going to be low and untargeted. Lead quality for a strategic partner is going to be high and qualified. The time required from you for that budget agency might be 10 to 12 hours a week. From your strategic partner, it might be 1 to 2 hours a week. Your closing percentage from your budget agency, you're going to close maybe 3%. From your strategic partner, that's going to be more like 30%. Your ROI from your cheap agency, break even at best. From your strategic partner, you should see a 4 to 6x ROI. The brand perception with that cheap agency, you're going to be a cheap contractor. With your strategic partner, you'll be a trusted expert. The long-term value from the cheap agency is going to be little to none. But with your growth partner, it's going to be sustainable growth. There's a big difference between the two. So that leads to the question, what should you as a remodeler look for in a quality marketing partner? Well, first of all, industry-specific knowledge. Ask the question, have you worked with remodelers before? They should understand seasonal buying cycles, local competition, and buyer psychology. You also want to look at transparent reporting and ROI metrics, and expect reports that include cost per lead, closing rates, return on ad spend, customer lifetime value. Now realize you've got to be part of that equation too. If you're not giving a feedback loop, then it's hard for them to give you all of that data. So if you're not reporting to them sales closed, if you're not reporting to them lifetime value of those customers, repeat business, it's hard for them to give you all of those metrics, but they should be able to report to you phone interactions, lead form fills, all of those things, and you should be able to cross-correlate what business was closed, what the value of that business was, and come to a very clear ROI based on that information. They should have an ecosystem-based strategy. There are no magic bullets in today's marketing world. So look for an agency that builds a full funnel. Optimized website, SEO and paid ads, email follow-ups, retargeting campaigns, and CRM integrations. You want to look for proven results and case studies. Don't settle for testimonials. Ask for before and after lead flow comparisons, revenue increases, and then customer acquisition cost reductions. And here's the real cost of cheap marketing, something for you to consider. Low-cost agencies might seem like a safe bet, but in reality, they often waste your time, bring in the wrong leads, dilute your brand, and block your long-term growth. On the other hand, a strategic marketing partner will build systems that grow with your business, that refine over time, and deliver predictable, scalable results. So don't ask how little you can spend, ask how well you can grow. See, the real cost of cheap is strategic defeat. Let me say that again. The real cost of cheap is strategic defeat. Choosing the cheapest route may feel safe, but it charges hidden fees in time. Reputation, opportunity, and wasted budget. You lose energy because you're managing corrections. You miss funnel opportunities because of tactical scatter. Your lead pool is low quality, your brand is diluted, and you lack data to make informed, smarter next steps. But remember this, marketing shouldn't be a cost center. It should be a scalable investment, and when it's done right, quality marketing becomes a forecasting tool rather than a gamble. You wouldn't hire a discount electrician for a high-end remodel. So don't cut corners on the engine of the growth of your business. Be sure to invest in partner-level marketing that commands the price margin you deserve. And if you're ready to stop wasting your time and start growing your remodeling business, if you're done with chasing bad leads and managing unreliable marketers and wondering where your money's going, then maybe it's time for an upgrade. So I invite you to schedule a strategy session with us at Remodeling Marketing Team. We would love to be your strategic long-term growth partner. You can do that at remodelingmarketingteam.com. Thanks for tuning in, and I look forward to being with you on the next episode.